Sakamoto Ryuta was a 20-year-old guy who spent his entire day playing video game on his computer. He had been unemployed for 2 years, and one day when his mother tried to convince him to get a job at his uncle's udon restaurant in front of his online chucks, he got angry and threw the controller so hard at her that it cracked the wall. He had his eyes set on the company he wanted to work with, which was Tyrannos Japan, the company that had developed the game B-Tomb. This ugly, lonely loser, however, was the best in the game and also rizzed up a girl in there. B-Tomb is an extremely popular game that sold over 3 million copies worldwide. The reason for its popularity was that there were no guns in the game. Players could only use bombs or BIMs as per the situation demanded to defeat enemies. They used sonar to find the enemies and bombed them to win. Sakamoto and his team aimed to reach rank 1. In the B-Tomb world, he was the strongest and most respected. He was married and was living a great life, but Sakamoto did not realize what he was getting into. Once he gained consciousness, Sakamoto saw that he was stuck in a tree in a parachute. His whole body was hurting and he couldn't move at all. It was a forest and no one was around. He freed himself and fell to the ground. He couldn't figure out how he reached this place. The last thing he remembered was playing B-Tomb in his room. His head started hurting bad. He reached up and his hand got covered in blood. Why couldn't he remember what had happened? Reaching into his pocket, he took out his phone just to see that there was no service. On top of everything, there was a green gem-like thing embedded in his hand, but it was not hurting and it didn't feel out of place. It felt like some UFO had kidnapped him. He was surrounded by a deep forest. Surprisingly, he found his bag on the ground. It had his wallet, a change of clothes, and also some convenience store food in it. He opened the bottle of tea and chugged down half of it. Now he had to figure out where he was. He started walking through the forest southwards. He put away the bottle of tea. He knew subconsciously that he must save it for later. A bug suddenly flew and hit him. He ran into all kinds of disgusting wild insects and pests in the forest. Sakamoto was starting to fear for his life. He screamed out in disgust. He started running aimlessly through the forest and tripped. He fell out in front of the ocean. Where the hell had he suddenly reached out of nowhere? An isolated island with no escape or a city nearby. Sitting at the beach, Sakamoto suddenly started to remember the events of the previous evening. He had gone to shout at his mother for sending out his resume without asking his permission. Strangely, his mom seemed pretty lifeless, though he didn't notice. After he left the kitchen, Sakamoto went outside, thinking if he should go to his friend's house, but he was stopped by 2 strangers. Remembering all of this just made his head hurt even more. He couldn't forget the terrorizing image of his mother's lifeless expression. The sun was setting, and he had already finished all his food. Beside his bag, Sakamoto had found a strange pouch that he couldn't recognize. He opened the bag and found many small boxes inside. While taking one out, he mistakenly pressed some button on it. Suddenly, a timer of 10 seconds started. Sakamoto got a bad vibe just looking at it. He promptly threw it as far as he could. It fell to the ground and burst. It was a bomb. All the boxes in the pouch were bombs, but why were they in his bag? He left them on the beach because he thought it had nothing to do with him. Down the beach, he saw another person walking. Momentarily, he was very happy that there were other people on this island. He called out to the guy, but in response, the other man threw a bomb at him. The bomb destructed near him. The man came running towards him to throw another one. His low IQ brain couldn't process what was happening. This arrangement seemed a lot like the B-Tomb game. He saved his ass and ran into the forest. The main strategy was to hide from the enemy to win in B-Tomb. The enemy caught up to Sakamoto, but he was hesitant to throw a bomb. The bomb would kill the enemy for sure. He couldn't even hold back though, otherwise he would die himself. The first bomb he threw didn't explode. Then he remembered he had to press the switch before throwing. The second bomb he threw fell into the water and burst after a long time. His enemy was only sprayed with water. Sakamoto's enemy laughed at him. How come this guy didn't even know how to use his bombs? Sakamoto disappeared from his enemy's vision. He came up behind the enemy and threatened him not to turn around. Sakamoto asked all the crucial questions, clouding his mind. He still wanted to know what was happening from the guy who's trying to kill him. Was he a part of B-Tomb too? The enemy just laughed off Sakamoto's dumbness and showered him with attacks of bombs. Sakamoto figured out that the green gem in his hand was for sonar detection of enemies, in which case hiding would not be of any help. While hiding, he finally figured out how the bombs worked. He had to look at the timer before throwing it. His enemy's bombs burst on impact while his had timers. The setup was exactly like B-Tomb. Sakamoto jumped into the river and planted the bomb beneath the opponent without him noticing it while the countdown was still running. The enemy didn't notice in time and the bomb blasted on him. Sakamoto felt very guilty about it all, but he really had no choice. It was self-defense. He took the enemy's bombs after killing him. This was exactly like Beatum, a game of murder, but this time in real life. Then the story shifts to a blonde girl named Himiko. She was the girl Sakamoto fell in love with and married in the game. Himiko was initially very shy and didn't have much confidence in Beatum. She thought Sakamoto's team really was amazing at their game. Sakamoto was after all the best player in Japan. Out of nowhere, Sakamoto approached her and asked her to be his teammate. She was hesitant to join at first since her level wasn't too great, but Sakamoto convinced her to join. That was how they met for the first time. She thought it was fate. Just 3 games with them increased her rank by 20,000. But how she ended up here? Himiko and her friend went to click pictures cosplaying as the players of Beatum. Himiko was just a normal girl at school. She stood out amongst others because she was a foreigner. Her life was very normal up until she landed up on this deserted island. Himiko's friends were all obsessed with this one guy called Yoshioka Senpai and his music band. Himiko took them to meet him because he was her neighbor. Himiko left the place for some time to get snacks. Her friends were very excited to meet him. When she came back to his room, she was shocked to see all her friends violently injured and lying on the floor. Yoshioka was about to attack her too, but she managed to run away in time. She managed to outrun the evil boys and ran outside. She had brought all her friends to meet these guys, but she was the only one able to run away. The case later got a lot of publicity. Yoshioka and his friends were arrested, but Himiko's friends resented her for running away. Himiko thought this island was her punishment for that incident. She was scared of the forest, which was probably filled with a lot of bugs and insects. Plus it was cold. Being out near the ocean was also painful because of the sun. Himiko really craved some sunscreen. She wondered if she would ever be able to return to her everyday life. She remembered that in her school there was a rumor going around. If they provided the name of a person who they want to disappear out of their life, they would get 100,000 yen. It might have been the reason she ended up on this island. On the island, Himiko was approached by 3 men. One of them was a teacher, a mercenary, and a fat, ugly dude. The teacher convinced her to work with them so that all of them could get out safe in the end, but things did not plan out smoothly for them. While eating fish, they got from the sea with the help of a bomb. The teacher told everyone that he'll always do the right thing, which was not killing anyone. Another man, who was previously a mercenary, said that teachers like this guy usually turn out to be hypocrites. The 2 of them got into a fight, threatening each other with their bombs. The gangster-like man used Himiko as hostage. Thankfully, Himiko had a stun gun so she could escape. The men finally decided to let go of their weapons so that they would not end up fighting frequently. Himiko was put in charge of all the bombs. A plane-like object dropped something onto the island and flew away. Going up to the package, the men saw that it was filled with food, drinks, and even sunscreen. They all hungrily jumped on the food and started eating. One of the men objected, saying they should save some for later and divide the rest equally. Frustrated with this man, the gangster-like man furnished a knife and sliced right through this guy's throat. Now he could finally hope for some peace. At night, while the gangster guy was sleeping, the fat guy proposed that Himiko and he should run away. If they stayed together too long, they might get killed next. They should take all the food and bombs and run while they could. While running away, the fat guy sensed through his radar that they were being followed. They had to run for their lives, otherwise the gangster guy would definitely kill them. At a rope bridge, the gangster guy caught up with them. The fat guy had to throw a bomb at him to save himself. As Himiko was following the fat guy, he didn't seem to let go of her hand at all. He started acting way more creepily, spewing nonsense like he would protect her or something. Himiko did not want to kill anyone, but he was demanding her to do it. She saw glimpses of Yoshioka Senpai and the fat guy, and had to resort to using her stun gun against this creepy fat man to save herself. She could escape for a little while, but eventually the fat guy found her using his radar. He went on to try to assault her. He threw away her stun gun. Himiko got flashbacks of the Yoshioka incident. At first, she felt as if it was her fate for betraying her friends, but she took out a timer bomb. She was ready to kill herself rather than get assaulted. The fat man ran away as soon as he saw the bomb. Himiko realized she was about to die alone and couldn't stand it. She threw the bomb towards the fat man, which killed him. To her surprise, she didn't feel guilty. Rather, she felt proud to have protected herself. Himiko then went to that lake to clean herself and get rid of any signs of the filthy man. She promised herself that all men on the island were going to be her enemies. Sakamoto noticed Himiko bathing in the lake. The blonde girl looked traumatized to see Sakamoto, as they didn't meet in real life. She got defensive and backed up. Seeing Sakamoto at the lake, she quickly packed up all her stuff and ran away, but Sakamoto had seen how much food she had with her. If he didn't want to starve to death, He must find her somehow. He put the sonar radar to use now. He chased after her in hopes of surviving together. While looking for her, he noticed some movement behind a bush. He got out a bomb and shouted to this person behind the bush not to move, but it turned out that the man behind the bush was just taking a dump. He had no intention to fight at all. Neither did he want to die while pooping. Sakamoto agreed not to kill him, but at the same time he wondered how many people were there on this island. This fat man tagged along with Sakamoto to the lake. He told Sakamoto about their plane ride that he couldn't remember at all. After abduction by those strange men, they were all taken onto a plane. The plane had around 20 to 30 people, men and women of all ages. They were surrounded by armed men in the plane. There was no way of escape. A man was briefing them about where they were going through a TV screen on the plane. He was acting very jokily about their terrifying situation. He explained the game rules to them. The people on the plane were told that they were being taken to a deserted island in the Pacific Ocean. The island was completely uninhabited and there was no food or water. They would all be provided with 8 bombs called BIMs. All of them would get different types of bombs, without receiving any instructions on how to use them. They had only 8, so they should use them carefully. All those people on the plane had to fight each other. They all had embedded chips in their hands which would help them find each other. These chips could not be taken out without surgery, but the chip would fall out by itself after death of the person. To win the game and escape the island, these people had to collect 8 of these chips, which meant 7 chips other than their own. The people on the plane were getting jittery. They didn't like that they were forced into this. They tried to object, but were threatened to be shut up with stun guns. The fat man told Sakamoto that he was the only one brave enough to come up and challenge the man on the screen. Sakamoto seemed to know this mastermind man, but he was punished severely for the rebellion. He was hit with the stun gun at an increased voltage. He fell unconscious after that and didn't wake up until the next morning in the jungle. That was probably why he lost his memories too. All the people on the plane were put into parachutes which opened automatically and were then pushed off the plane onto the island. Sakamoto finally understood how he reached this strange place, but he still couldn't understand why. All rules were exactly the same as the virtual game, and if he knew the man behind all this, then the Tyrannos Japan developers of B-Tomb must be involved. They were the best game developers in the world. If they were behind this, then the plan was very meticulously formed. He must kill 7 people to escape the island. He didn't think he was capable of murdering so many just for the sake of this game. He started shivering just at the thought of it. The fat man saw his fear and proposed to work together. Working as a duo would be safer for both of them, but it also meant that now they must kill 14 people instead of just 7. The fat man was also reluctant to kill anyone. He wanted to find another way to escape the island. Sakamoto thought the fat man was so naive for thinking this way. There was no way to survive other than this. How would Sakamoto survive as a duo with this man who didn't even want to participate in the game? The fat man sensed his worries and backed out of the duo plan by himself. In that moment, Sakamoto felt like his persistence to stay out of the game was interesting. He agreed to form a duo with this old man, but he presented one condition. The fat man must show him his bombs, how many and what type he had. The fat man refused this condition. He believed they would respect each other more if they didn't know the other's weapons. The weapons were, after all, their only asset in this game. Sakamoto was impressed. This fat man was not just spouting nonsense, he had actually thought this through. Sakamoto agreed and they formed a duo. It was very dangerous to be alone at that point anyway. The fat man finally introduced himself. His name was Taira. He used to be a real estate officer in Osaka. They were on their way through the island when they heard the plane flying over the island. Sakamoto figured out that it was dropping off food items. Sakamoto ran towards where the food package landed. On reaching near, he was saddened to see that someone else had reached there already, but someone had planted a bomb near the food. The woman who had reached it first died instantly. Another geeky guy came out from behind and took out her chip. He took everything belonging to the woman. It was pretty cunning of the geeky guy. He had planned killing anyone who would rush to get the food. Sakamoto couldn't believe how everyone on this island was ready to kill without any second thought. Taira finally reached up to Sakamoto. There was another parachute that could be seen in the distance, but Sakamoto was hesitant to go there. It wasn't worth it to risk their lives over some food. Taira convinced him to at least try to get to it. Without food, how would they have the energy to fight? Kira Kosuke was a 14-year-old boy who had killed and then raped 3 women. He had escaped from his abusive father at home and ran away. He was being held at the police interrogation room, awaiting his trial. The law would probably protect this minor, but he was a complete psycho. He even had the audacity to laugh while still in custody. Kira Kosuke and the lawyer who was supposed to represent him both had ended up on the island. The child had very disturbing habits. On the island, the lawyer found him killing frogs. He had already slaughtered around 100 of them. He thought it was completely normal to go around killing living creatures. The lawyer tried explaining to the boy that killing for fun is wrong, but the kid was very stubborn. He didn't understand why it was wrong to kill if he wasn't bothering anyone. Kosuke's father was also on the island. Kosuke was really scared of his father. He always went silent whenever his dad was mentioned. His father forced Kosuke to use his bomb to get to their food package. The lawyer wanted everyone to have equal share of that food, but Kosuke's father took the entire package for himself. He threatened the lawyer, "There's no police or laws in here and he can do anything he wants." Why was he always so problematic? Kosuke was done putting up with this bad behavior continuously. He couldn't bear his father's constant abusive behavior anymore. Kosuke quickly planted an implosive bomb on his dad. Before his dad could react in time, the bomb blasted. Kosuke was happy. It was the first time he could stand up for himself. He felt at peace. The lawyer Natsume had to puke in shock. He couldn't bear to be with Kosuke anymore. His father was a bad man, but Kosuke was worse. Natsume ran away from Kosuke. Sakamoto and Taira reached the food package beside Kosuke. They wondered how Kosuke had killed the corpse lying on the ground. It didn't look like the corpse was blasted. The radar didn't catch Kosuke because he wasn't moving. This was also the reason why Himiko's radar didn't sense Sakamoto in the morning either. Kosuke's disturbing handling of the corpse and his opinion on killing without bounds scared Sakamoto. Sakamoto and Taira ran away. Kosuke was completely absorbed in the game. He was going psychopathic. He was going to be great at it even in real life. While running, Sakamoto could sense that Kosuke was using his radar. Was he chasing them? Sakamoto couldn't bring himself to kill another person. Taira tripped while running and injured his leg. He told Sakamoto to leave him and keep running. Sakamoto was in a dilemma whether he should risk his life to save an Ola man he had just met, but he decided that he would help Taira. He said Taira to stop moving and hide while he tried to distract the kid. Kosuke was using his radar smartly, slowly getting closer to Sakamoto and carefully judging the distance between them. Sakamoto upped his strategy and tricked Kosuke. Kosuke's bomb couldn't get him. He escaped unhurt. Sakamoto could easily defeat him. Kosuke was a 3-star player while Sakamoto was 4-star. Kosuke was having fun playing. Sakamoto knew he must think before he attacked. He must set a trap in order to defeat him. Kosuke had both cracker-type and implosion-type bombs. The implosion bomb almost killed Sakamoto, but he threw away his bag just in time to survive. Kosuke asked Sakamoto to fight him for real, since they were both actual players of the game. Kosuke wanted to treat this real-life game just like the virtual one. He called Sakamoto stupid for holding back in real life. Sakamoto had smashed his head against a rock in one explosion. His head was kind of reeling and his vision went a bit blurry. His compromised thinking made him believe that the reality was just the game. He really believed that he was in his room playing the virtual game. His senses felt sharp. It was as if he was looking at himself from behind just like he did while playing the virtual game. Now Sakamoto started playing for real. He used all strategies of Bitoom. Sakamoto figured out radar canceling. If he could read Kosuke's mind and use his sonar at the same time, then Kosuke wouldn't be able to detect him. But how was he radar canceling every time? Sakamoto played like a pro and threw a BIM at Kosuke when he least expected. Sakamoto won the match. Sakamoto and Taira were finally relieved to get some food. They were both enjoying some hot cup noodles. Sakamoto was still thinking about the fight when he almost killed someone again. As they were eating, they saw a dead body flowing by in the river. This meant that someone dangerous might be lurking at the top of the waterfall. Sakamoto asked Taira to hide himself and wait while he went up to see if anyone was there. Before climbing, he checked his bomb supplies. Meanwhile, Taira collected the green chip from the dead body. Now he had collected 2 chips. In the forest, Sakamoto ran into a decaying body and got disturbed. He had to go to the river to wash up after that. The corpse's chip was gone. On using his radar, Sakamoto found someone on top of the mountain. He thought it must be a murderer who had killed many, but he found out that it was the blonde girl, Himiko. In self-defense, Himiko threw a bomb from the top of the mountain, but it went the wrong way. She shouted, "Stay away," as she threw it. Her bomb was a gas pipe type. The fumes from the bomb melted anyone who came in contact with it. Sakamoto had to run to save himself. As he ran, he was shocked to see that he came up in front of Himiko. She had lured him out. She looked like she had bomb supplies from 3 or 4 different people. Sakamoto convinced her to refrain from fighting immediately. He wanted to team up with her so that they all could get off the island alive, but as soon as he started going closer to her, her guard went up. She couldn't trust men at all, after all that she had gone through in the past. She activated a bomb and threw it at Sakamoto. He could save himself only because her aim was terrible. Sakamoto ran towards her through the smoke. He was getting too close to Himiko. She couldn't use another bomb, so she took out her stun gun to try to stop Sakamoto, but he carefully defended himself in a way that the stun gun ended up shocking Himiko herself. She fell on top of Sakamoto. She was so close to him, he thought she smelled good. While she was unconscious, Sakamoto thought of taking away her weapons. While doing so, he got the urge to touch her a little. He almost did it but was able to control himself. He was carrying her while she was unconscious, to take her to a safe place. Himiko had a nightmare about the fat man who tried to take advantage of her. She woke up in Sakamoto's arms. She was scared of getting assaulted again. She had an extra timer bomb in her pocket. She was ready to die, rather than be taken advantage of. At least she would die pure. Sakamoto was able to stop the bomb in time before it blasted. He took her to Taira. At night, they lit a fire and Taira made some coffee for Himiko. He gave it to her in a noodle cup, but Himiko did not agree to try to get off the island together. Himiko knew something the other two didn't. She knew that her friends were the ones who had chosen to send her to this island. Her friends had been given money in return of recommending Himiko's name as someone they would want to disappear. There was no point in going back to the normal world where even their friends and family wanted them to disappear. If this was true, everyone on the island was meant to disappear. Sakamoto thought back on the events that had happened before he came here. His mother was probably the one who had recommended his name. While they were talking, they suddenly heard movement in the forest. Sakamoto used his radar but nothing showed up. Suddenly a bunch of giant lizards came out of the forest. Sakamoto told Taira to take Himiko to the other side of the river while he tried to get back their bombs. Sakamoto hit the Komodo dragon with a huge rock and it ran away, but another one had almost reached to attack Taira. Sakamoto took out a bomb and threw it at the Komodo dragon, but it didn't explode. Sakamoto had not killed the person he had taken this bomb from. That must be why it was not working. The Komodo dragon bit Taira's leg. Sakamoto threw his own bomb to get the wild animal to run away. Taira's leg was bleeding badly. He was in a lot of pain, but still they were walking. Taira was scared that Sakamoto might choose to abandon him someday. After all, he was just slowing him down. Sakamoto assured him that he would not betray him. The Komodo dragons were following them and got very close. Sakamoto had to run a different way because of them. He lost Taira. He couldn't even see him using the radar. Sakamoto was afraid that Taira had chosen to run off with all the food and bombs. A Komodo dragon was getting very close to Sakamoto. A bomb came and hit it. Taira had rescued Sakamoto. They both had been looking for each other. That's why their radars canceled each other. Taira revealed his bomb type to Sakamoto. He trusted him completely now. After walking for a while, they came across a building beside the sea. They had to get in there fast to avoid the Komodo dragons. The building had only a ladder going up. They had to carry Himiko all the way up, but they slipped and all 3 of them fell down. Taira went to fight off the lizards while Sakamoto got the girl up, but he couldn't do it by himself because the ladder was too rusted. He tried waking her up but failed. Then he got an idea. He used Himiko's finger to switch on her burning gas bomb. Then he went up the ladder and threw the bomb at the lizards. This would surely kill them all. While Sakamoto went up, Taira thought he was abandoning the girl. They kept doubting each other whenever a dangerous situation came up. They were safe from the burning gas because of the sea wind. The wind and the rocks would protect them. This real-world B-Tomb was different from the virtual world. Here there was wind and you could use another person's BIMs too. Inside the building, Sakamoto found remains of what looked like a person's murder, but it didn't look recent. Maybe there was a similar game on this island before they arrived. Taira was feeling dizzy and he had a fever. His leg pain became very intense. His wound was probably getting infected. Himiko held down Taira so that Sakamoto could disinfect his wound. In the morning, Sakamoto saw that 5 lizards were dead, but the rest had returned to the forest. The area still smelt of poison, so they probably wouldn't return. Himiko asked Sakamoto if he was having any weird thought. Seeing his face, she could tell that he was thinking lewd things. She was disgusted at him. They were all resting inside the building. Sakamoto wondered what was going to happen to them now. Back at Tyrannos, they were keeping check on the island. A machine-like man was tasked to keep observing Sakamoto, since he was the best at game, for collection of data. Himiko was always wary of men. If anyone got a little close to her, she immediately defended herself. She refused to give Sakamoto her name and also made it clear to him that she wasn't working with them. Sakamoto asked her how she had so many bombs and food. He demanded to know how many people she had killed. Someone used sonar on them. Himiko said she had been seen. She was leaving the building, but Sakamoto stopped her. In the virtual world, Sakamoto and Himiko were married. Sakamoto had wanted to meet Himiko, but she refused. She liked things the way they were in the virtual world. Sakamoto went out of the building to find the person who had used the radar. While he was searching, the man came up behind him and almost attacked him with a knife. Sakamoto saved himself in time and ran. He got further away and threatened this man with a bomb. Sakamoto asked him to work an alliance as well, but this man was already working with someone else. Natsumi, the lawyer, threw a timer bomb at Sakamoto. They were able to get Sakamoto to the ground and took all his BIMs, but Sakamoto used his stun gun and ran away. The tattooed man was planning to let him go anyway. He could make out from Sakamoto's words that he had friends. Back at the building, Himiko was scared that others would have followed Sakamoto to reach them. She was getting ready to leave, but the tattooed man had found them. He had expected to see Himiko there when he saw Sakamoto using the stun gun. The tattooed man was insistent on playing the game to win it. He did not believe Sakamoto that maybe there was some loophole in the game. He cut Taira's hand with his knife and also threw Sakamoto off the building. After falling, Sakamoto was thinking of the virtual Himiko and their moments of being together. Sakamoto pulled himself together and climbed back up. Taira was bleeding badly. The tattooed man had taken their food and all their BIMs too. They had taken Himiko too. Sakamoto saw that Himiko had left her phone behind. Opening her phone, Sakamoto saw her name was Himiko. That meant she must be the virtual Himiko. Now he definitely needed to go save her. Taira didn't want to be left alone, but they needed supplies for his cure. Sakamoto promised to be back soon. The tattooed man and Natsume were torturing Himiko. They would employ all forms of torture like peeling off her skin with the knife, but radar was used on them. Sakamoto had found them. They were ready to fight him. The tattooed man sent Natsume to fight Sakamoto. Tattooed man heard an explosion, but still he could feel Sakamoto getting closer. Maybe Natsume had missed. On hearing footsteps near the door, he went to attack, but saw that it was only Natsume. Sakamoto had somehow missed Natsume's bomb. While entering a door, Sakamoto almost got hit with a BIM that was hidden there, but he disarmed it, and it became his. Disarmed BIMs could be used by the one who disarmed it. Since he had no bombs with him, this BIM could become Sakamoto's miracle. He saw Himiko all tied up. He rescued her and asked if she was the Himiko he knew. Himiko told him that she wasn't the one he had played with. While trying to escape, Sakamoto successfully threw a bomb at Natsume and caught him off guard, but in that time, the other man had caught Himiko and put a knife at her throat. He asked Sakamoto for an honest fight. The winner would get 8 chips. The knife was on the floor. Sakamoto ran out to get it but was hit by a kick from the man. The man had asked for a bare-handed fight. Sakamoto was caught. Himiko came to the rescue and secretly planted a bomb on the man when she jumped on him. The man didn't see it in time and it exploded. Sakamoto and Himiko ran out of the building. They had to escape the gas. They escaped through a hole in the roof. The melting man almost pulled down Himiko, but Sakamoto was able to kill him with another bomb. Back at the headquarters, the fat man was presenting the observations of this game to a large audience. He said the 3rd round had started, and the game was just getting more and more interesting. At school, Himiko was very lonely. After the incident, she was bullied and called a traitor. The only place where she felt good was in virtual Bitoom because Sakamoto was always there beside her. Sakamoto had planned not to play the game, but in order to save himself, he had killed 2 more people. Another woman on the island, Kishinoda, killed her ally to get extra chips. She pushed him into a pit where he was attacked by Komodo dragons, and then she also dropped a bomb on him. She gave an evil smile and she was ready to do whatever it took to survive. At the headquarters, they observed that all the people acted like they wanted to work together, but as soon their lives were in danger, they were more than ready to kill. In fact, that was the most interesting part to them. Watching the entire game live made the CEO feel like he was a god, in control of this game universe. Sakamoto and Himiko went inside a building to get some place to sleep. They were almost running out of food. They ate food and changed clothes. Sakamoto was about to go to another room, but Himiko stopped him. She was scared to be alone. This seemed like the first time she opened up to Sakamoto. She was starting to trust him a little. That night they had a deep conversation. Sakamoto told Himiko how much he cared about the virtual Himiko and how much she meant to him. Himiko still didn't reveal her identity to Sakamoto. She cried out of happiness, but she didn't know if she should tell him the truth. In the middle of the night, Himiko suddenly woke up and saw a pale, white, ghost-like man staring at her sleeping. Sakamoto woke up from her screams and went outside to check. Sakamoto believed that Himiko was hallucinating, but she insisted it was true. Outside the building, a little far away, Sakamoto saw a light moving. How did they get so far away without showing up on his radar even once? While exploring, he came across a room. It looked like someone had been living there for a while now. The room was a trap to lure him in. He was attacked from behind with a knife. Thankfully, the attacker missed her target. It was a frail-looking woman. Her hand was cut off and her chip was missing. That's why she didn't show up on the radar. Sakamoto wondered how long she'd been living there. Himiko was scared and alone. Sakamoto came up quietly from behind, so she got scared. She hit him on the head. He took her to the woman. The woman looked like she had been on the island from long before they got there. The woman didn't want to be near any man and kicked at Sakamoto. Himiko told Sakamoto to give them some alone time to talk. Himiko asked the woman about this island. The woman told her to stay away from all men. She had been on this island for around 6 months. She had been a nurse in the real world. She was betrayed by a doctor that she trusted. The whole world and the hospital had turned against her in a single moment. That's how she ended up on the island. Once on the island, she had trusted and paired up with a man who promised to work together. But once they had collected 6 chips, he didn't hesitate to try to kill her and get his 7th one. He threw a bomb at her, but that didn't kill her. It just got the chip off her hand. She thought she was very stupid to have trusted the man. The man took 7 chips and escaped. A helicopter came to rescue him. She alarmed Himiko to not believe in love, and once they had 7 chips in hand, their trust and their humanity would be tested. Himiko went back to Sakamoto and they planned to threaten the helicopter pilot together so that they all could escape once they had collected 7 chips. But Himiko couldn't bring herself to tell him about the 7 chip situation. She also didn't reveal up until then that she was the virtual Himiko.